Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Okay, I'm still driving, but you can start lah. You may start.
Okay, Doctor.
Okay. I will start first. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Doctor.
Okay. So my case, the patient in Shirah, 1 year, 1 month old girl, was brought to accident and emergency department, Koshas, with the complaint of rapid bleeding for 1 day. She was initially well until she experienced fever for 2 days prior to admission. The fever was high grade, continuous and persistent in nature. It was not associated with chills and rigor. There was no fitting episode. It was described as warm to touch. Her mother recorded the temperature at the time and it was 39 degrees Celsius. She was given antipyretic drug, paracetamol, via rectal route. The fever was relieved. The fever was not associated with sore throat, runny nose, and rash. She denied abdominal pain, diarrhea, vomiting, and mucosal bleed, and denied living in dengue-prone area. She also denied involvement in water recreation activities and rodent infestation at home. According to the mother, Inshirah developed rapid bleeding after waking up from sleep, which was sudden in onset in the morning of the day of admission. The rapid bleeding was associated with noisy bleeding. It progressively worsened in the evening. Her mother noticed that there was chest indrawing when she cried and had hoarseness of voice. Her mother claimed that her daughter's voice became weird as compared to her usual voice. However, she denied allergic rhinitis and eczema. She also denied bluish discoloration of the face. There was no palpitation, breathlessness when lying supine, and acute episode of breathlessness when sleeping at night. She was immediately brought to private clinic at Taman Kinrara. She was treated with nebulizer and the rapid breathing resolved. She was suspected to have asthma as her younger sister and cousin have asthma. She was given antipyretic, anti-asthmatic, and mucolytic medication. However, the rapid bleeding recurred at home and became progressively worsened till the evening. Upon further questioning, the rapid bleeding was associated with cough that is barking in nature and non-productive. She denied any post-tussive vomiting. She denied prolonged bouts of cough, history of sick contact in the family and contact with TB patients. Otherwise, she denied any history of choking of milk or foreign body, neck pain, and drooling of saliva. Upon arrival at the accident and emergency department, vital signs were recorded and she was treated with nebulized budesonide and IV dexamethasone. She was warded in Ward Melo 2 for further management of her illness. For systemic review, general, she is active as usual, pink and no bluish discoloration of face and extremities. Cardiovascular system, no chest pain, palpitation, orthopnea, paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea, bluish discoloration of the face. Respiratory, no hemoptysis and night sweats. Gastrointestinal, no abdominal pain, distension, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, body stool, bowel incontinence, and also no difficulty to swallow in this patient. Genitourinary, no frequency, urgency, dysuria, hematuria, and frothy urine. For hematological, no jaundice, swelling, pallor, epistaxis, or bleeding tendency. Neurological, no dizziness, headache, syncope, seizure, impaired hearing and vision, and no history of weakness and numbness of limbs. Musculoskeletal, no muscle pain, muscle weakness, bone pain, joint pain, and joint stiffness. For past medical and surgical history, she was first hospitalized in May 2018, which is 9 months before, due to cough and runny nose for 3 days and fever for 2 days. She was admitted for 1 week and treated as viral pneumonia and given fluid therapy and antibiotic. Otherwise, she didn't have any underlying medical illness and has not undergone any surgical intervention before. For birth history, antenatal, her mother had gestational diabetes mellitus and was treated with insulin and advised to control her diet. Otherwise, her mother have good compliance to antenatal visits and care throughout her pregnancy. Intrapartum, she was born full term at 39 weeks via spontaneous vaginal delivery with birth weight of 2.9 kilograms. Postnatal, she had neonatal jaundice for 2 weeks, but phototherapy was not indicated. There were no other postnatal complications. For nutritional history, she was exclusively breeding for 1 month. At 1 month old, she was introduced to formula milk. She started weaning at 6 months of age, in which she started to eat porridge, bread, and biscuits. Currently, she consumes 2 to 3 meals daily that consists of rice, chicken, and vegetables. For growth and development history, according to the mother, she is growing and developing normally, and it is appropriate for her age, which is for gross motor, she can walk alone. For fine motor and vision, she can point to object of interest. For speech and hearing, she can understand simple instruction. And for social, she can find toys from hidden view. For drug and allergy history, she is not at any medication, and there is no known drug or food allergy. For immunization history, the immunization was completed up to her age, following the vaccination schedule. She had no allergic reaction following the vaccination. For family history, his father is 27 years old, while his mother is 23 years old. This is a non-consanguineous marriage. Both of her parents are well. She is the youngest out of 2 siblings. Her elder sister is 3 years old and has asthma. There is no similar problem and history of malignancy running in the family. For social history, she lives with her parents and sibling with total family of 4 at Taman Kirara, Puchong. The house is well equipped with electricity, water supply, and proper sewage system. Her father works as a security guard, whereas her mother is a housewife. The monthly income is about 1,500 ringgit. Her father is a smoker. However, both of her parents did not drink alcohol and did not had any high risk behavior. Okay, for physical examination, the physical examination was examined after nebulizer was given. So for general examination, the patient was alert, conscious, and active. She was sitting comfortably on her mother's lap. She was not in pain or respiratory distress. Her size is appropriate for her age. She was not pale, jaundice, or sinus. She was not dysmorphic. The hydration status is normal with no dry lips, moist mucosa, and no sunken eyes noted. There was a branula intact at a dorsal part of her right foot without active infusion. Examining the hand, there is no finger clubbing, peripheral cyanosis, koilonychia, lychonychia, palmar erythema, dupuytron contracture. There was also no splinter hemorrhage, oscillate node, and granulation. The capillary refill time took less than 2 seconds. VCG scar was noted at her left arm. Examining the face, there was no conjunctival pallor or scleral jaundice. Her oral hygiene was good. There was no white coated tongue or central cyanosis. There was no injected throat or enlarged tonsils. Bilateral tympanic membrane was normal and not inflamed. There was no cervical lymphadenopathy or abnormal pulsation noted at the neck. There was also no pedal edema. For anthropometric measurement, her weight is 10 kg, which is between 3rd and 10th centile, and her height was 70 centimeter, which is less than 3rd centile. Make her BMI 20.41 kg per meter squared, and her head circumference was 47 centimeter. Her vital sign, the temperature was 37 degrees Celsius, which is afebrile. Blood pressure 104/55 millimeter mercury, which is normal. Pulse rate 136 beats per minute, which is normal. Respiratory rate 28 breaths per minute, normal. And the SpO2 level it was 99%. And for respiratory examination, there was no audible wheeze and stridor. There was no use of accessory muscle. And on inspection, the chest is flat and moves symmetrically with respiration. But there is subcostal recession. There was no chest wall deformity, surgical scars, and dilated vein. On palpation, the trachea is centrally located. The chest expansion was equal bilaterally. Tactile vocal parameters was unable to be assessed. And on percussion, there is resonance throughout all lung fields. On auscultation, vesicular breath sound was heard with no added breath sound such as rhonchi or crepitation. And the vocal resonance was unable to be assessed. For cardiovascular system, there was no radial delay or radiofemoral delay. There was no collapsing pulse. Peripheral pulse were present. Examining the precordium on inspection, there was no bulge, pulsation, prominent vessels, or deformity. Apex beat was palpable at the fifth intercostal space at the left mid-clavicular line. There was also no trill or parasternal heave. On auscultation, S1 and S2 was heard with no added heart, sound, and murmur. For GI system, the abdomen was flat and moved symmetrically with respiration. The umbilicus is centrally located and inverted. There were no dilated veins, visible pulsations, visible peristalsis, striae, and scar noted. On palpation, the abdomen is soft and non-tender. The liver and spleen was not palpable. The kidneys were not palatable. Shifting dullness and fluid trill were not present. On auscultation, bowel sound was heard with no aortic or renal bruit. For neurological system, there was no abnormal posture or deformities of the limbs noted. There was no fasciculation or muscle wasting. The power and tone were normal for both upper and lower limbs. The reflexes were equal on both sides of upper and lower limbs. The sensory proprioception and cerebellar function were not assessed. In summary, in Shira, a 1 year and a 1 month old girl presented to Hoshas with the chief complaint of rapid bleeding for 1 day duration, associated with fever for 2 days, barking cough, chest inrowing, and also hoarseness of voice. On physical examination, it didn't show any significant findings except there is subcostal recession only.
Alright, what's the diagnosis?
My professional diagnosis is viral croup because she has fever, barking cough, hoarseness of voice, chest indrawing, rapid breathing, and also noisy breathing. But she didn't have any coryzal symptom and also no stridor. And for differential diagnosis, first bacterial tracheitis because she has fever, hoarseness of voice, cough, and also noisy breathing. But she is not toxic looking, and also there is no stridor. My other differential is epiglottitis because she has fever and also noisy breathing, but she did not toxic looking, and so she didn't have any painful throat. Also, there is no drooling of saliva. And my other differential is foreign body aspiration because she has cough, hoarseness of voice, and also noisy breathing. But she didn't have any history of choking, and also she didn't have any stridor.
Okay, good. So no issue about your data and your presentation. Okay, so just further discussion, yeah. If you hear a stridor, maknanya like croup nih. So the problem, where is the problem actually?
Upper respiratory tract.
Okay, upper. Yeah? So we must distinguish, we must differentiate whether the problem is upper or lower airway. So what is the cutoff? Batas dia kat mana? Upper and lower tu.
The bronchioles, the upper until the bronchus, and the lower from bronchioles to alveoli.
So maknanya kalau patient with bronchiolitis, upper or airway obstruction?
Lower.
So limit dia kat mana? Upper and lower tu kat mana? Apa yang upper dari sampai mana? Lower yang from where?
Upper sampai bronchus.
Atau bronchiolitis lower.
Bronchiolitis lower. Sampai
kalau bronchitis, if bronchial asthma, constriction, upper or lower?
Lower.
So bronchus tu upper or lower?
Bronchus lower.
So batas dia kat mana?
trachea.
Before bronchus apa?
Trachea,
Trachea upper or lower?
trachea apa?
So between trachea and bronchus ada apa kat situ?
Bifurcation. For the bifurcation.
Nama dia apa kat situ? Ada one spot. Anyone? Yang lain?
I don't know.
Yang lain. Just
Carina?
before Carina lah. Just before the branch of the two main bronchi, right and left, itu ada carina kat situ. So usually upper airway obstruction will have stridor, whereas the lower airway obstruction will have apa?
Wheezing.
Wheezing. So itulah the difference. Ya. Usually wheezing will be heard on inspiration or expiration.
Wheezing, expiration, stridor, inspiration.
Okay, but stridor can be both lah. But if it is more on inspiration, will have will give more specific finding. Yeah. Usually stridor will be harsh, low pitch, yeah. Whereas the wheezing will be high pitch. Yeah. Okay, itu yang penting ya. And then so the keywords in your presentation will be stridor kan tadi udah sebut. Memang tak jumpa, but the history ada.
Stridor ada. Tapi tak ada stridor, tapi dia ada hoarseness of voice.
No history of noisy breathing tak ada.
Noisy breathing ada.
Apa?
Ada. Noisy breathing ada, tapi on noisy breathing on history ada, tapi on physical examination there's no stridor.
Iyalah, saya dah tanya tadi on your history tadi apa?
Oh, ada.
Yeah, I know. In your PE itu normal, tapi in history tadi apa? Noisy breathing dia.
Ada.
Iya apa? Description noisy breathing in history tadi apa?
Dia ada noisy breathing with noisy breathing. He said that rapid breathing was assisted with noisy breathing.
Ya, description ada tak?
Description worsen indeed.
Tuh description tuh should follow yang tadi kita discuss tadi, whether it is in inspiration or expiration, whether it is harsh sound or pitch sound. So macam itulah nak bezakan itu stridor ke rongkai ya. So maknanya case yang buat case up tu tak paham ya, tak paham upper or lower airway obstruction. Okay. So itu ya. So contoh. So next time you present or read a case, describe in the history noisy breathing to inhale or exhale, harsh sound or high pitch whistling. Ya. So itu keywordsnya kat situ. Kalau description tak betul, tak spesifik ya, we don't know lah whether it is stridor or rongkai. Okay, so let's say it is betul stridor ya, on inspiration, harsh sound, low pitch. So your differential tadi betul apa jawab? Crow apa lagi?
Crow, epiglottitis.
Okay.
And also bacterial tracheitis.
Okay, which one more severe?
Epiglottitis.
Okay. Alright. So lagi satu tadi kan foreign body ya. Foreign body can depend on the location lah, can be upper or lower. Ya. Kalau yang croup, epiglottitis, tracheitis are always upper ya. Memang tempat dia ke atas ya. Kalau foreign body ya ikut tempat dia ke mana obstructionnya, can be upper, can be lower. So dah betul ya, the differential tu dah betul. Memang jangan campur ya. Kalau lower airway obstruction, what are the differential?
Lower like bronchiolitis, bronchial asthma and pneumonia.
bronchial asthma tuh you kena sebut patient asthma tuh can be normal, healthy, control, well control, asymptomatic. Kalau you sebut bronchial asthma tuh macam tuh. Kalau
Okay.
patient with bronchi apa diagnosis dia yang proper?
Acute exacerbation of bronchial asthma.
Yes. Okay. Pneumonia pun, actually kalau pneumonia itu problem dia kat mana actually pneumonia itu?
Alveoli.
Actually lung parenchyma lah, or
Lung.
interstitialnya lung parenchyma inflammation. So actually we expect crepitation, yeah. But you can hear a rhonchi if there is also bronchospasm, yeah. So kena tulis kalau you hear you not diagnose pneumonia but you hear a rhonchi, kena tulis pneumonia with bronchospasm. If you hear, if you write on pneumonia only, we expect only crepitation, yeah. Okay. So, any investigation to confirm crop too?
Chest X-ray. There will be a steeple sign.
Actually, the supporting, yeah, your steeple sign is right, but the answer for confirmatory investigation is wrong. Yeah. There is no confirmatory investigation for crop. It is clinical diagnosis. So we do X-ray, no, only to help or support the diagnosis. Even though we don't perform X-ray, we don't have the steeple sign, we still will diagnose as crop. Yeah. Okay, and then lagi satu actually not chest X-ray. Untuk dapatkan steeple sign tu minta dia request dia actually apa? Location is not exactly on the chest, actually more on neck, ya. Anteroposterior position. Kalau yang thumb sign and epiglottitis minta lateral position. Okay, so last kali treatment.
Treatment give steroid for symptom reliever, and for the fever it is self-limited.
Okay. Actually ada lagi treatment lain apa? Steroid itu actually second line, yang first line yang should be done itu apa? Patient with upper airway obstruction.
Intubation. Intubation?
Ya, intubation ya not all. Ya kalau severe lah. Ini all patient with croup nih. Apa yang the best choice of treatment ada? Tak baca ke?
Yeah.
Nebulize apa?
Nebulize budesonide.
Itu steroid juga lah.
Steroid
Yang lain apa? Lagi satu apa?
Adrenaline.
Adrenaline.
Apa? Sorry? Adrenaline or racemic epinephrine. Actually the best choice yang tu. But the availability is not always available lah. Racemic epinephrine ni. Selalu yang kita ada only IV adrenaline. Actually boleh je pakai IV adrenaline but not the best way lah. So that's why usually yang more available is NAPS budesonide tadi, or oral steroid or IV steroid. Yang steroid ni lagi senang nak dapat. Okay, any question about this case? Tak ada. Novel yang group 4 mana ya?
Saya group 4 yang sebelum ni.
Alright. Yang group 4 ni ada lagi session dengan saya ke?
Ada masa week 6 ada masa BS, ada BS.
Nanti masa week 6 belajar kardio lah. Kalau kita belajar kardio dengan saya nanti tak ada, orang lain tak ada yang ajar nanti.
Okay.
Nanti dari case kardio nanti yang week 6 tu. Yang grup 3 dah kan rasa kardio ya? Mana grup 3? Grup 4 dah kan maknanya kan?
Group 4 dah.
Alright, grup 3 siapa nih anak berisan?
Me, Doktor.
Nama
Siti Arisha.
Siti Arisha ya, oke. Hari itu yang
Saiful.
sorry yang tadi yang our first session dulu discuss apa dulu? Pernah kan ya? Kau belum pernah?
Kawasaki disease dengan nephrotic syndrome.
Nefrotik ya, betul kah? Bukan
Ah,
kardio
betul.
dua hari itu.
Dengan Kawasaki disease.
Iya lah, Kawasaki kardio. Dengan nefrotik ya, lupa saya.
Nephrotic.
Okay, alright. So now siapa tadi Adisa? So you present lah.
Saiful, an 8-year-old Malay boy with underlying Down syndrome, was brought to emergency department of HDA due to right thigh swelling for 2 days duration. 2 days prior to admission, Saiful's family noticed redness on anterior portion of Saiful's right thigh when he was in his bedroom, and the reddened area was described as about 50 cm in diameter size, a bit swollen, red in appearance, and warm on touch. The swollen area was slightly raised, but there was no oozing of fluid or pus or blood from the area as claimed by his family. Saiful screamed in pain when his mother touched the area and prevented any of his family members from doing so. His mother checked for other parts of his body and found no lesion with similar presentation. Apart from that, Saiful developed fever on that night on the same day for 2 days duration, which was continuous, associated with chills and rigor with no documented temperature at home. There was no medication was given. The mother only did tepid sponging at home, but fever did not seem to be elevated. Otherwise, there is no rashes and no fitting episode. On second day of illness, his mother noticed the lesion on Saiful's right thigh become more red and more swollen compared to previously, and the patient screamed in pain upon touch and had difficulty walking properly due to the pain. Upon further questioning, his mother said that 2 days prior to admission, Saiful was cycling around the neighborhood and was said to trip on the road. He only had a minor fall down and there was minimal bleeding due to skin injury on his right knee. There was no other injured areas noted. After that, Saiful then was brought to ED of HTA at night on the same day due to the worsening swelling. And at ED, documented temperature was 38.7 degrees Celsius. Blood tests and leg x-ray were done and patient was admitted into pediatrics medical ward of HTA. For birth history, antenatally it was uneventful. The mother had no predisposing disease along the pregnancy. Patient was born moderate preterm at 32 weeks period of gestation via spontaneous vertex delivery due to preterm premature rupture of membrane. The birth was uncomplicated and the birth weight is 1.8 kilogram. Patient then was diagnosed with Down syndrome and congenital heart disease since birth. For past medical history, patient has Down syndrome. He was diagnosed with congenital heart disease and had undergone an operation before reaching 1 year old. The patient, however, defaulted subsequent follow-ups. Other than that, he also has history of hospital admission due to TO intake associated diarrhea and had undergone operation once to suture his tongue after being injured from bicycle cycling in January this year. Immunization is completed and up to age. There is no history of allergy or any side effects after vaccination. Patient was breastfed only for a short period of time. After that, he was given formula feeding Pediasure as recommended by the doctor. However, he stopped milk feeding at the age of 5 years old as his parents are incapable of buying the milk product. For developmental history, For gross motor, Saiful can walk, kick, and hop on one place. He is able to open bottle cup himself and undresses himself. He can speak 3 phrases per sentence. He is sociable and greets everyone around happily. He is not on toilet train and he is still wearing diapers. Saiful is the last child out of 8 siblings. His father is a 49 years old wiring man, while his mother is 47, working at ECM as a boutique supervisor. There is no consanguinity. The elder sibling is 26 years old, followed by 25, 22, 20, 17, and 13. Both of his parents and all of his siblings are currently well without any apparent illness. For social history, Saiful was enrolled in Kelas Pendidikan Khas at a primary school and has many friends in the class. He lives in Kempadan Perdana in a single-story house accommodated with basic necessities such as electrical supply and clean water supply. The gross income is about 3,500 per month. On examination, the patient is alert, conscious, and sitting while pointing both of his legs towards the end of the bed. He is pink, not pale, not tachypneic, and not cyanoid. He is febrile, and there's no rashes noted on his body. There is granula attached on his left hand with active intravenous antibiotic insertion. For vital signs, temperature 37, he is febrile. Pulse rate is normal, 86 beats per minute, regular rhythm, good volume. Respiratory rate is 20 breaths per minute. He is normotensive with blood pressure of 90/60. For systemic examination, for musculoskeletal examination, the hands and feet are small, broad with short fingers. There is red swollen tender area on anterior portion of his right thigh. The reddened area is demarcated by blue marker pen and is about half of the thigh size. The reddened area is slightly raised but is not filled with any fluid or pus or blood. There is no crust or vesicles noted over or around the swollen area, and there is no ulceration, no necrosis over the area. There is small skin lesion noted on his right knee. For cardiovascular examination, there is on inspection, there is left subscapular surgical scar noted on posterior back of the body. Apex bead is fat in the left fifth interscrotal space at mid-clavicle line. No cardiomegaly noted. No trail or parasternal heave on palpation. First and second heart sounds are heard with no added sounds, and there is no movement noted. Other system examinations were unremarkable. For case summary, Saiful, an 8-year-old Malay boy with underlying Down syndrome and congenital heart disease, presented with fever and painful right thigh swelling for 2 days duration. Patient has history of fall on ground 2 days prior to admission.
Hello.
Hello, doctor.
Sorry, I missed your summary tadi. Can you repeat summary?
For summary, Saiful, an 8-year-old Malay boy with underlying Down syndrome and congenital heart disease, presented with fever and painful right thigh swelling for 2 days duration. He has history of fall on ground 2 days prior to admission.
Fall on ground and then sampai swelling. His development macam mana? Able to walk kan? Gross motor no issue kan?
Yes, he is able to walk.
And then finding on PE.
On PE, he has Down syndrome characteristic features such as the hands and feet are small, broad with short fingers. There is red swollen tender area on anterior portion of his right thigh. The radial area is demarcated by blue marker pen and is about half of the thigh size. The area was slightly raised but is not filled with any fluid, pus or blood. There is no crust, no vesicles noted around the swollen area, and there is no also ulceration or necrosis. And there is small skin lesion noted on his right knee.
Okay, so diagnosis.
My diagnosis is right thigh cellulitis. My differential diagnosis is allergic contact dermatitis.
Okay.
The second
What's
one
the
is
difference? Cellulitis with dermatitis tu apa beza dia on your physical examination or history pun tak apa.
In allergic contact dermatitis, a patient usually feel itchiness of the area, and the area will be dry, scaly and flaky skin.
Okay. Kalau cellulitis?
For cellulitis, it is moist, red, painful, very painful, and raised area, slightly raised.
On your upon your touching apa?
There is tenderness.
Lagi satu, kan when you press kan on open pressure kan tenderness pain on tenderness. Kalau masa you sentuh rasa apa? What do you feel?
Warm on touch.
Ya warm lah kan. The specific features of inflammation. Okay, differential lain apa?
Infectious lymphangitis. Because the patient also presented with fever, pain, also swelling of his right thigh, but there is no swollen lymph glands on PE.
Okay. Alright. Dah, alright. So treatment? Hello? Treatment apa?
We perform VNT. We perform the sweat for culture and sensitivity and prescribe antibiotic according to specific microorganism.
Okay, kalau definitive treatment kan wait for result. Tapi kan masa you meet the patient, you must start antibiotic empirical treatment. Usually we give cloxacillin. Ya. What are two most common infectious agent? Bacteria?
Staphylococcus aureus and Streptococcus.
Okay, usually kalau for Staphylococcus tu we choose cloxacillin, but kalau for Streptococcus penicillin should be effective. So usually kita pakai cloxa dulu lah. But if it is more towards Streptococcus, we can choose penicillin. Or sometimes ada some treatment yang dia combine both antibiotic. Actually necessary. Okay, actually for cellulitis ini not that specific issue for pediatric postingnya. So we discuss sedikit lah pasal Down syndrome. Okay, what are the features of Down syndrome?
The patient has small head. Patient has small head, flat face, with the upward slant eye, and there is tiny white spots on the iris of the eye. And then patient also has small low set ears nearly the neck. The neck is wide and short, and he also had flat nasal bridge, protruding tongue, And
Oke, flat nasal bridge dengan apa namanya prominent medial epicanthal fold tuh disebut apa? Hyper apa?
Hypertelorism.
sorry, Doctor.
Patient kan ada flat nasal bridge, and then medial epicanthal fold-nya dia kan prominent, tebal, ya, thick. So these two features tuh akan give a feature of hypertelorism. Oke, next, closed ear, apa lagi?
If we look at the extremities, patient with Down syndrome has short, broad hands and feet with single crease on
Oh
his
iya,
palm.
yang sorry, the head tuh bukan small head is the layman term lah. The medical term usually brachycephaly kita sebut. Ya actually not really small. Kalau Down syndrome not always dia microcephaly. Dia brachycephaly usually. Itu prominent apa nama dia? Sorry, flat occiput and prominent frontal. Kita sebut frontal posing. Oke, extremities apa?
Patient has short, broad hands and feet with a single crease on his palm.
Oke. Lagi apa?
And then if we look at the two, there is a large space between the big toe and the second toe.
Okay. So, what are other apa namanya diseases or illnesses that related to Down syndrome?
Duodenal atresia.
Okay, GI tract. But actually GI tract tuh can have any apa namanya anatomical anomaly ya. Yang most common actually duodenal atresia, but can also Hirschsprung, can yang lain-lain pun boleh ya. Oke, next.
Congenital heart disease.
Oke, most common apa?
Atrioventricular septal defect.
Okay, AVSD. So he will be pink or blue?
Blue.
Yang lain? Others? Nah, kalau blue salah ya pink lah. Kenapa you cakap AVSD blue? AVSD itu kat mana defect dia?
At the septum between both atrium and ventricle.
Okay, so pressure left and right mana lagi besar?
Left.
Okay, so akan ada left to right shunt or right to left shunt?
Left to right shunt.
Okay, left to right shunt. So yang oxygen rich mana? Yang left ke yang right? Yang banyak oksigen?
Left sided.
Bukan left side aja, left heart lah yang left. Systemic circulation dia oxygen rich, mananya the tongue, the peripheral will be still pink lah. Kalau patientnya cyanosis itu yang cyanotic congenital heart disease kan justru right to left shunt. Nah, contoh TOF, dia ada right ventricular hypertrophy with pulmonary cyanosis, maknanya dia akan ada shunt from right ventricle to aorta to left ventricle. Oke, lagi yang lain apa?
Increase risk for respiratory infections such as pneumonia.
Oke, next. Endocrine ada apa?
Thyroid dysfunction.
Apa? Congenital. Apa? Hypo or hyper?
Congenital hypothyroidism.
Hypothyroidism. Ya. Lagi satu on malignancy lah. Apa?
Leukemia.
Increases of leukemia. Ya, ALL lah usually. Okay, so go back to congenital hypothyroidism tu. Kalau usually function of thyroxine tu dia on metabolism kan, on multi organ metabolism. So most likely dia kalau with congenital hypothyroidism, so we'll have global developmental delay, mental retardation yang affect on CNS tu. And then go to apa namanya musculoskeletal pun dia ada weakness ya. So dia akan ada protruded tongue and then umbilical hernia. So itulah kalau your patient tu kalau nampak dia very protruded tongue, umbilical hernia, so be careful about the hypothyroidism. Even patient-patient yang congenital hypothyroidism yang non-Down syndrome only have congenital hypothyroidism, usually features ya yang itulah. Can be protruded tongue and then umbilical hernia, distended abdomen, prolonged jaundice due to the dysfunction of the liver. Okay. And then another discussion on Down syndrome tu ya the mode of chromosomal anomalies. So apa dia Down syndrome tu?
Trisomy 21.
Okay, most common is trisomy 21, but there are another two mechanism. Apa?
Mosaicism, where there is mixture of two types of cells. Some cell
Okay.
presented with 46, some cell presented with 47 chromosome.
Okay, and then lagi satu.
Translocation.
Okay, translocation. Beza dia apa yang mosaicism, trisomy, translocation?
If translocation, each cell has 46 chromosomes, but there is additional full or partial copy of the chromosome 21 attached to another chromosome. But the total still 46.
Usually translocate to 14 lah. 14 and 21 tu. And then the features dia actually the problem of with translocation tu is on the maternal or paternal cells ya, on the gamete tu, on the germ cell actually ya. So most likely maternal lah. So the result kalau translocation, so all offspring, semua anak dia akan Down syndrome, which is actually rare lah. Kalau you jumpa satu family yang anak dia Down syndrome semua, maknanya itu maternal translocation, sel ibu dia yang dah ada translocation. Okay. Kalau trisomy itu non-disjunction during meiosis, maknanya ada satu allele yang dia fail to separate, jadilah 47. Kalau yang mosaicism itu actually during mitosis non-disjunction dia. So mitosis proses kan di autosome itu ada yang 46, ada yang 47, so combination. So yang mosaicism itu actually the milder form. Dia sometimes you will not see all the features or very only mild features of Down syndrome. Sometimes kita tak nampak sangat. Kalau pasien-pasien yang with Mongolian face tu usually itu trisomy 21 ya. Kalau yang Down syndrome yang mosaicism actually tak nampak sangat the face tu. Usually sometimes we diagnose due to other issue, for example dia nampak apa namanya, congenital hypothyroidism, ternyata dia ada Down syndrome, for example like that. Okay, any question about Down syndrome? Dah, tak ada. Alright. Okay, dah habis ke? Ada yang pesan lagi?
Ada satu lagi, Doktor.
Alright.
Boleh start, Doktor?
Okay, start.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This patient, Safwan, a 5-year-old Malay boy, was admitted to HTAA due to fever and loose stool for 3 days duration. The patient was apparently well until 3 days prior to admission when he experienced fever that is warm to touch. The fever gradually worsened from the onset. It was associated with chills and rigor, especially at night. There was no temperature recorded at home. He was brought to the clinic Kesihatan on the first day of the fever, and the first recorded temperature was 37.8 degrees Celsius. The fever was relieved temporarily by shrub paracetamol. It was severe enough to cause him to be absent to the kindergarten the next day. The patient also experienced passing of loose stool for 3 days duration that started simultaneously with the fever. He passed stool about more than 10 times on the first and the second day. The stool was described as watery greenish in color and classified as Bristol 7. The loose stool was large in volume, which is more than 1 cup each time. However, there was no presence of blood and mucus in the stool. The mother was not sure of the urine output. Apart from the fever and diarrhea, it is also associated with 2 episodes of vomiting. It was projectile and consists of the food taken earlier. It was large in amount. There was no presence of blood, mucus, or bile. Mother also said that her son had reduced appetite and fluid intake. He only took about 1 to 2 tablespoons of rice per day. Upon further questioning, there is history of taking outside food when the parents bought him kuih before going to the kindergarten. They live in a dengue-prone area where the mother reported a recent fogging in the area. Otherwise, there was no rashes, no muscle or joint pain, no history of traveling or water activity, no history of recent sick contact, and there was no signs of upper respiratory tract infections such as sore throat, cough, and runny nose. There was no symptoms of urinary tract infections such as dysuria, hematuria, and also frequency. For the systemic review, there was fever, loss of appetite, and he became less active. Other system was unremarkable. For the past medical history, this is his first admission to the hospital. He had no known medical illness, and he had not undergone any surgery before. For the birth history, antenatally, it was uneventful. The mother did not have any problems during her pregnancy. He was born at term at 38 weeks of gestation via spontaneous vertex delivery with birth weight of 3.2 kg. The delivery process was uneventful. Postnatally, he had neonatal jaundice for a few days but resolved spontaneously without admission to the hospital. He was exclusively breastfed until 6 months old. He started weaning at 6 months old with soft diet. Around 2 years old, he started on adult diet and tolerating it well. On normal days, he usually took 3 meals per day. Each meal he took a plate of rice with chicken or egg. Sometimes he asked for extra plate of rice. He did not take any vegetables or fruits regularly. For the developmental history, the mother said the development was appropriate following his age. His kindergarten performance was moderate. His social performance was good according to his mother. For the drug history, apart from the shrub paracetamol, he is not on any other drug. There was no known food or drug allergy. The immunization was done up to his age following the national vaccination schedule. He had no allergic reaction following the vaccination, such as fever or rashes. For the family history, his father is 32 years old and his mother is 29 years old. It is a non-consanguineous marriage. He is the second child out of 3 siblings. All family members are healthy and had no non-medical illness. Otherwise, there was no family history of atopy or malignancy. For the social history, he lived with his parents in Semambu in a house with adequate amenities, including good water and electrical supply with good ventilation. It is a dengue-prone area with recent fogging reported by his mother. His mother worked as a clerk in Semambu while his father is a lorry driver with total income of 3,000 per month. The father is a chronic smoker. The nearest health facility is about 5 minutes away. For the physical examination, on general examination, the child was conscious, alert, but less active. The Glasgow Coma Scale was 15/15. The child was pink with no signs of respiratory distress. He was lying comfortably on his back. He is quite thin for his age. There was no dysmorphic features, no neurocutaneous stigmata, and no rashes. There was a branula intact at both of his hands with no infusion at right dorsum hands and active intravenous infusion of normal saline on the left dorsum of his hand. On peripheral examination, there was no clubbing, peripheral cyanosis or palmar erythema. The periphery was warm with capillary refill time less than 2 seconds. The pulse was regular with good volume. Skin turgor was immediate. On examination of the head and neck, the head size and shape was normal. There were mild sunken eyes, no conjunctival pallor, and no sclerojaundice. Both ears revealed earwax with no signs of infection or ear discharge. The lips were quite dry with mild coated tongue. No central cyanosis and mouth ulcer. The throat was not injected and tonsils were not inflamed. On the neck, there was no abnormal swelling, cervical lymphadenopathy, or abnormal pulsation noted. No neck stiffness, no bilateral ankle swelling, and calf tenderness noted. The patient was moderately dehydrated. For the vital signs, it is 94/52, which is normal. The heart rate is 101 beats per minute, which is normal. The respiratory rate is 26 breaths per minute, which is normal. The temperature is 37 degrees Celsius, which is febrile. Then for the anthropometric measurement, the weight is 14.3 kilogram, which is below the third centile, and the height was 110 centimeter. On abdominal examination, on inspection, the abdomen was symmetrical, not distended, and moved with respiration. There was no surgical scar, dilated veins, visible peristalsis or pulsation. The umbilicus was centrally located and inverted. On palpation, the abdomen was soft and non-tender. Liver and spleen were not palpable. Kidneys were not barometable. On percussion, there was no shift in dullness. On auscultation, normal bowel sound was heard with no renal or aortic bruit. Rectal examination was not done. Then other systemic examination was unremarkable. For the summary, the patient Safwan, a 5-year-old Malay boy, was admitted to HTAA due to fever and loose stool for 3 days duration. The fever worsened gradually but relieved temporarily by shrub paracetamol. He experienced loose stool about more than 10 times each day, and each time the stool was large in volume. The stool was described as watery greenish in color and classified as Bristol 7. There was no presence of mucus or blood in the stool. He vomited twice of food contents with no presence of bile, mucus, or blood. He had history of taking outside food and lived in a dengue-prone area with recent fogging noted. Otherwise, there was no history of recent sick contact, traveling, and water activities. It is not associated with rashes, respiratory, musculoskeletal, or urinary symptoms. Other systemic review were unremarkable. On physical examination, he has signs of dehydration, including sunken eyes, mild coated tongue, and dry lips, which indicates moderate dehydration. That's all. Doctor?
Sorry, mute tadi ya. So what's the diagnosis?
My provisional diagnosis is acute gastroenteritis with moderate dehydration because the patient has fever, loose stool, vomiting, and also he has a history of taking outside food and also signs of dehydration.
Okay, AG itu the most important part is assessment of dehydration because management akan nanti ikut following your assessment. So why you say as moderate dehydration, bukan mild dehydration, bukan severe dehydration?
Because the patient has mild sunken eyes and also dry lips and also coated tongue.
Kalau severe apa yang pernah jumpa?
Kalau severe, we can look at the general status. The patient may be decrease in the consciousness and also very sunken eyes, and the skin turgor was and when we
Kalau
pinch
mild, kalau mild apa beza mild and moderate dehydration?
for mild dehydration, the patient has no sunken eyes.
Salah.
And if we
Kalau no
offer
sunken eye, a patient without dehydration.
sorry, Doctor?
And then jumpa apa kalau you kata tak ada sunken eye, you jumpa apa in mild dehydration? Tak ada finding patient without dehydration, no dehydration. So actually, clinically mild and moderate itu similar. So that's why actually the WHO latest classification tu dia mild to moderate dehydration atau sebut some dehydration.
Okay.
So only 3 actually, bukan 4 ya classification tu. Yang A yang first tu ya without dehydration, and then plan B kalau with some dehydration, plan C kalau severe. So konsep tu dulu yang bagi tutorial siapa? Bukan saya sih Pak ya. Tutorial dehydration Dr. Ismail ya. Actually dia dah given my slide. Actually concept of dehydration tu kalau yang severe or already intravascular fluid loss. So that's why you jumpa patient hypovolemia, hypotension ya. Ya tachycardia, weak pulse, cold extremities itu semua tanda sign of the hypovolemia is there ya. Kalau yang mild to moderate dehydration tu the intravascular fluid still intact. Yang loss is interstitial fluid loss. So kat space tu hilang. So that's why you jumpa sunken eye, sunken fontanelle, dry lips, dry mucus. Okay. Skin turgor macam mana? Skin turgor pun even in mild to moderate dehydration can be prolonged. Tapi kalau udah severe dehydration ya lagi prolong lagi, more prolong. Okay. Lagi satu is the urine ya. Kalau mild to moderate still oliguria. Kalau severe dehydration dah anuria, dah tak ada kencing. Yang penting tu you tanya, tak akan parents tanya apa cakap anuria, oliguria. Usually kalau anuria normal urination tuh 4 to 6 every 4 to 6 hours. Kalau udah 6 jam tak kencing, kayak oliguria lah. Kalau anuria tuh udah lagi lama, maybe 12 hours or more ya. No urine production. And then early lagi kalau yang oliguria tuh di color lah kan, dia dark yellow. Kalau yang normal urine kan should be light yellow, clear. Yang you kena tanya description in history itu. Dan lagi satu konsep of parameter of dehydration, actually single objective parameter to state dehydration is the percentage of weight loss. So that's why kan kalau mild tuh 3%, kalau moderate 5 to 10%, kalau severe more than 10%, itu is percentage of weight loss. Actually percentage of weight loss, but it is correlated with percentage of weight loss. Yeah. But it is difficult to get how many percent of weight loss because usually we don't have the baseline. Sebelum diarrhea berapa berat, usually we don't know. And then all must use same scale because kalau you pakai scale lain-lain, even though hospital yang sama, brand sama, kalau scale lain, maybe yang satu tak calibrated, yang satu udah rosak, tak akan sama resultnya. Will be some discrepancy. So itu ya, so assess it is patientnya ada some dehydration, so nanti you baca manajemen dia ikut plan B ya, protokol. Okay, settle. Okay, second thing about the AGE is about the causes. Ya. Apa differential causes itu apa aja? Possible organism.
For the most common organism is for children is rotavirus.
Not only for children, semua tu tak ada beza children and adult tu.
Okay.
So you classify based on the classification of microorganism, je senang kan, viral, bacterial and parasite. Ya. So most common virus is rotavirus. Ya. Up to 40%, ya 25-40%. And then most easily transmitted ya rotavirus. Pernah sampai sakauat tuh 90% of case ya rotaviral AGE. Oke. Kalau bukan rotavirus apa virus lain?
Norovirus, coronavirus.
Corona susahnya. Itu ya enterovirus.
Enterovirus.
Oke. Bakteria apa yang you pikirkan? Causes.
Most common is Campylobacter jejuni, and then other.
Most common ya E. coli lah.
E. coli. Okay.
Others apa lagi? Selain Campylobacter apa lagi?
Others is Shigella, Salmonella, and also.
Okay. Kalau yang parasite?
Parasite, Entamoeba, Histolytica, Giardia lambia.
Okay, and then also some worm infestation pun boleh kalau cacing ya. Alright. So usually viral tuh dia will have some secretory diarrhea. Dia akan disturb the absorption in small intestine. So jadilah dia watery diarrhea. And sometimes with vomiting, yeah. And never develop bloody diarrhea. But if bacteria and parasite can have some invasive invade the mucosa, so can have some bloody diarrhea. Yeah. So yang most common apa kalau bloody diarrhea kita sebut dysentery ya. Apa most common yang bakteri apa yang parasite apa?
Shigella.
Yang bakteria Shigella, even salmonella boleh. Kalau E. coli yang enteroinvasive or enterohemorrhagic ya. Kalau yang parasite apa?
Entamoeba histolytica.
Okay. So ada two group tadi kan, bacterial dysentery or parasitic dysentery, shigellosis or amoebiasis. So usually bacteria tu more severe, lying down dysentery kita sebut shigellosis tu. But kalau parasite, amoebiasis tu usually walking dysentery, patient still smiling, still active, sometimes still tolerate orally, still makan minum biasa. Tapi feces dia, najis dia keluar darah. Okay, another differential if it is bloody stool but not necessarily diarrhea apa? Ada one serious illness that you must be aware. Kalau patientnya ada blood in the stool.
Blood in the stool.
Anatomical issue, surgical issue, apa?
Interception.
So kita kena pikir intas. Usually in infant masa dia start weaning tu 4 months, 6 months, 9 months. But kalau dah more than after 1 year old dia jarang. Patient ni umur berapa?
5 years old.
Okay, 5 years jarang intas. Even patient ni tak ada dysentery kan, tak ada darah. Okay, kalau in infant ada dysentery, we must aware about the intas. Okay, apa lagi nak discuss? Causes, dehydration, treatment nak ikut lah. And then you nak hantar apa? Investigation. Kata most common rotavirus. Hantar apa?
For the investigation, we can order stool examination.
Kalau stool examination, result dia akan keluar, dia ada color and then ada leukocyte, macam tu je. So kalau you nak cari rotavirus, you kena tulis spesifik, stool rotavirus. So kena request minta rotaviral punya test with stool using stool sample ya. Jangan pakai darah ya, nak cek rotavirus ya stool sample, stool for rotavirus. Ya, and then routine of course ya, stool examination is routine ya. Do you send stool culture?
No.
Okay, in this case maybe no lah. It is not routine ya. Stool culture tu usually in severe cases ya, sepsis, yang severe dehydration or dysentery ya. Karena tadi kalau dysentery kita kena pikirkan shigellosis atau salmonellosis. Ya. Kalau common ya, AGE biasa je yang mild dehydration, we don't send routine ya, because it will not change the management. Management still sama. Yang penting rehydration. Okay, this one yang AGE yang enteral diarrhea ya. Memang the causes dia memang ada enteral organism. But in some case of diarrhea we must aware about parenteral diarrhea kan. Apa je possible causes?
The possible causes is upper respiratory infection, urinary tract infection, and also meningitis.
Actually any infection tu boleh je, any other systemic infection boleh ada some symptom of diarrhea ya. Dengue pun diarrhea, measles pun diarrhea, ya, mana-mana infection. Sekarang yang COVID-19 pun can have some diarrhea. Tapi this case kan sudah buat systemic review kan, ada sistem unremarkable kan.
Yes.
Betul. So unlikely,
Betul.
tapi ada satu sistem yang even though you don't find any symptom, actually we cannot rule out, ya, especially in infant, ya, in a small child. Yang mana? Sistem yang mana?
Urinary tract.
Urinary
Urinary
tract.
system.
Kalau URTI kan senang aja, ada batuk sesama. Kalau meningitis ya ada some meningeal sign or lost consciousness or seizure, ya. Tapi kalau urinary tract infection in small child, especially infant, kalau less than 3 months, symptom dia usually only fever and diarrhea and vomiting. Itu sama kan. Patient will come with fever, diarrhea, and vomiting. We can diagnose as AGE or UTI with parenteral diarrhea. So better you put UTI as differential. Unless kalau macam ni kan dah 5 year ni, you boleh tanya kan, patient dah boleh jawab, dah boleh communicate. Usually kalau UTI will give some symptom of abdominal pain or dysuria or urgency frequency. Itu. Biasanya tadi ada apa? Diarrhea and then fever, vomiting ada?
Ada.
Ada.
Fever, vomiting and diarrhea only.
Tapi still possible juga lah. Sometimes kan even though dia tak complain, patient itu tak complain dysuria, we usually still send UFAM lah. Ada dia UFAM sample. Ini investigation result, tak ada.
Ya.
Patient ni kat mana? Hospital mana?
HTA.
Okay. Ada tak?
Dalam ni dia tulis dia tak buat.
Tak buang. Itulah better you do lah, you check UFAM because it is possible UTI. Alright. Dah, nak tanya apa lagi AGE? Treatment you baca sendiri lah, yang protokol ikut tu, how to rehydrate the patient.
Doktor, kalau kita letak differential dia food poisoning boleh ke?
Food poisoning kan based on history tadi kan, dia ada history of eating outside, boleh je. Tapi food poisoning kriteria tu it is community, ya. Food poisoning is reflecting community AGE. So satu family or satu area or semua yang orang yang makan kat kedai sakit semua. Sama diarrhea semua. So yang ni yang sakit siapa? Dia seorang ke?
Dia
If only one person, ya we don't put as food poisoning. Ya can be other causes kan. Apa je? Kalau in history tu you tanya apa je possible factor that can lead to diarrhea despite makanan yang basi ke contaminated food, apa lagi yang lain?
Recent sick contact.
Okay, apa lagi? More common apa? You pernah cerik tak? Saya aja pernah. You basuh tangan tak? Satu, itu most common ya hygiene lah, hand hygiene. Lagi satu, masak kat rumah pun boleh cerik kan. So makanan kat rumah tu, kat rumah ada lalat ke tak? Proper protection, proper perlu letak tudung tu tudung saji. Itulah. So yang more common yang itu actually ya, cutu flies at home, poor hygiene. So don't always blame the eating outside, kedai mana, tak selalu. Kalau you salahkan kedai dan ternyata tak, you boleh kena saman balik. You put, once you put food poisoning, and then it is must be confirmed. Karena kalau kes-kes yang food poisoning kan selalu ada orang pergi kenduri, semua yang pergi kenduri, or bukan semua lah, banyak lah kes pergi kenduri, cerek, itulah we can blame the food kat situ. Sama juga kat kedai restoran tu macam tu juga. Kalau after you makan makanan kedai tapi yang sakit only one, actually possible another common actually ya the keeping food ya. So beli pukul tengah hari pukul 12 baru makan pukul 6 petang. More than 6 hours. Itu possible dia dah tak banyak contamination. So bukan salah kedai lah kan. Salah sendiri yang simpan makanan tu. So that simple question about the daily practice in the hygiene practice you can ask. So jangan hanya stop in the ini makan kat luar so coba food poisoning, bukan. Kalau tak ada makan kat luar pun pasien banyak aja yang diarrhea. Okay, alright. Okay, other question? Dah clear ke? Other questions?
Doktor nak tanya soalan yang tak berkaitan sikit boleh?
Okay.
Boleh ke kita year 3 pergi dekat HTA?
STA actually no issue ya, tapi itulah yang kita kena kontrol kan pergi MC, pergi our hospital ni sebab tak ada patient kan. Even today pun only one patient, itu pun bukan PITS, dia PITS ENT case, dia ada abscess. Kalau you pergi STA ini kontrol ni kita susah kan. Kalau pergi MC kan kita boleh kontrol kan. So, memang actually you kena propose your schedule ya. So group leader kena buat schedule, bagi tahu kami, tell us, boleh mentor, boleh koordinator tu Dr. Ismail, boleh saya. Yang penting you pergi itulah not more than 6 people in one time ya. So one session tu sehari boleh bagi 2 ya, session pagi dan session petang. Kalau you nak pergi sana boleh, you propose, and then let us inform as well lah the STA people. Because actually currently kan STA dah no more COVID cases. If you go there for only one session, should be okay. So you propose dulu, buat schedule dulu, and then kita inform juga sana. In 1 week sekali lah kok satu yang 5 orang kan. Kan sekarang you ada 4 grup kan. So you kalau nak senang you bagi je 8 grup ya. Per grup split lagi 2, pecah 2 ya. So ada 8 small group. Boleh pagi 1, petang 1. So dalam 4 hari setiap grup ni dapat pergi sekali. Okay, dah?
Doktor, habis tu teaching pun boleh buat kat situ ke macam mana?
Teaching ya ikut supervisor lah. Setakat ini kan kita don't invite lagi yang STA people. Itulah karena since COVID itu kita tak hantar student. So propose dulu your schedule. Kalau semua department agree and then STA agree, pergi sana dulu dapatkan patient baru minta teaching kat sana.
Okay.
Alright.
Doktor,
Okay.
nak tanya.
Alright.
Doktor.
Saya Sarah nak tanya. Doktor,
Sarah dulu tu.
Doktor macam mana dengan our case write up nak hantar bila tu?
Okay, set up the end of your posting lah. Satu je, one student, one case. And after you get the case lah. Kalau belum dapat
Oh.
case ni, jangan hantar lah. Nanti lah, so last day pun tak apalah.
Oh, that means our case boleh dapat daripada HTA lah kan, Doktor?
Can.
Okay. Thank you, Doktor.
Welcome. Okay, lagi satu tadi nak tanya ni siapa?
Saya nak tanya, boleh ke kalau kita nak pergi IMC waktu malam, kelab?
Malam tak boleh yang MC apa? Itulah, kena ikut schedule je. Masa teaching je boleh pergi situ.
Okay.
Even though you pergi malam pun kalau PACE ni tak ada case. So tak payah inilah, tak payah minta-minta malam kalau nak MC tu lah. Baik I prefer yang tadi nak buat schedule yang STA because in STA you can get the case. Kalau bagi MC tu adalah in the ward only sekarang today now only one patient. Your only choice tu kalau bagi MC through clinic lah. In clinic tu we can have some our follow up chronic cases. So not acute illnesses usually. Yang jadual MC dah ada kan?
Dah ada dah.
Itulah you ikut jadual tu. Kalau in ward you patient satu tu dan yang lain request lah turun kat klinik. Tapi itu pun usually you come tu only in during teaching kan? Hello?
Betul.
During
During
teaching
teaching.
itulah. Sekarang tu lah all the the lecturer ya pakai yang our lecturer only kan. Only plus Dr. Chan and Dr. Salihin.
Doktor, kalau pagi-pagi tu kat IMC tu tak ada teaching kan? Boleh ke join walk around ke?
Itulah in this COVID era ni tak boleh. Semua dulu-dulu boleh. Okay je tak ada isu. Sekarang you only allowed to come to hospital for teaching only. Itulah even STA pun itulah actually two ways lah, two alternative lah. Maybe you propose schedule or masa teaching tu, masa your teaching schedule you tanya je to the respective lecturer. If unlikely you have a case, involve only one, in clinic maybe not that much patient. So propose to him lah. For example, Dr. Ismail, can we request buat kat STA? Boleh. STA actually lagi easy because you can also even come one group tu yang 10 people tu come, tapi yang pergi watch separuh lah, 5 orang pergi watch, yang 5 tunggu kat mana, kat teaching room tu, kat bilik teaching. Yang this week saya tak ada jadual kan. Yang this week yang banyak tu Dr. Ismail dengan Dr. Said. Coba propose to them. Boleh tak salah satu teaching tu bagi STA? Atau dua-dua kalau boleh kan. Each group kan has 2 teaching session kan. Alright. Okay, anything else? Dah asar ni. Alright ya. So close our session with Tasbih for announcements. Okay ya. So alright, thank you. See you next week. Maybe I have many session of teaching next week. Ya. Alright.
Thank you, Doktor.
Thank you, Doktor.
Assalamualaikum.
Salam.
Oh ya, next week ada seminar saya ya. Tadi ada yang message. Ada kat sini tak? Anyone yang in this group tak yang present seminar dengan saya next week tu? Tak ada ya? Okay lah, tak apa. Alright. So ikut schedule lah. Maybe 20 tu Thursday ya kalau tak salah. Alright lah. So okay lah. Okay, thanks. Assalamualaikum.
Um,
Waalaikumsalam.